Good morning. We would like to begin by acknowledging that we are Mi'kma'ki, the traditional or ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We recognize that African Nova Scotians are a distinct people whose histories, legacies, and contributions have enriched the part of Mi'kma'ki known as Nova Scotia for over 400 years. Welcome to students, staff, community members, and other students and educators that are following along on the National Center of Truth and Reconciliation site as part of Truth and Reconciliation Week. Today, we are so fortunate to have Dorene Bernard here with us. Dorene Bernard is a respected Mi'kmaq grandmother from the Shubenacadie Band in Indian Brook, Nova Scotia, known for her tireless advocacy and leadership in Indigenous rights and environmental protection. A survivor of the Shubenacadie Indian Residential School, Dorene has dedicated her life to educating others about the Mi'kmaq history, the legacy of residential schools, and the importance of truth and reconciliation. With a Master of Social Work degree and experience as the Coady Chair on Social Justice at St. Francis Xavier University, she has focused on critical issues such as environmental racism, climate justice, and Indigenous cultural education. Dorene also spearheads the Grassroots Grandmothers Circle, a collective of women committed to cultural education, ceremony, and advocacy against missing and murdered Indigenous women and environmental justice. Her work unites Mi'kmaq and allies in the fight for a sustainable and equitable future for all. Please welcome Dorene Bernard to Hansies Royal High.
Thank you. Thank you. A little about myself. I am a survivor of the Shubenacadie Indian Residential School, as were my parents and my grandmother and my cousins and several, I'd say over 55 members of my family who went to the residential school in Shubenacadie. Collectively, we spent about 152 years there. We add up all our years that we spent there. Could see, so we have a lot of impacts still in our family and in our communities regarding the residential school. So my presentation today is on a little about the history of the residential schools. And then we want to talk about what commemoration means to survivors today. Truth is the first step towards reconciliation. Hope I'm doing this right. That would go good. For understanding. For understanding is the second step. And actions are the most important third step. We are responsible for our actions, what we are doing to make our society a better place for our families, our communities, and our nations. The residential school era is one of the longest and most lasting and damaging impacts of the Canadian government's racist policies against Indigenous peoples. For over 100 years, Canada tried to assimilate our people into Canadian society and erase our cultures, our languages, and our identities. The historic traumas on Indigenous peoples in Canada shows a growing need for Indigenous services based on intersecting and cumulative traumas stemming from colonization, residential schools, 60s scoop, child welfare system, Indian day schools, and the ongoing crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and relatives. Systemic racism environmental racism, and Indigenous history in Canada. I'm so thankful to the resilience of our ancestors that we are still here. We shall remain. Canada needs to work with Indigenous peoples in the true spirit of reconciliation to ensure that we restore our lands and our waters, our cultures, our languages, our identity, and our inherent right to exist and thrive for future generations. The true history of Canada must include our Indigenous history, the traumas of colonization and genocide as part of Canada. Only when we know the truth can there be reconciliation and healing of the legacy of the residential schools. This will take time, but we hope it doesn't take another 150 years. Education is the key to reconciliation, which we must do this together. Sorry, I'm a little behind. The losses suffered at the residential schools. We talk about what we are healing from. The children that attended the residential school, their losses were of love, the loss of love, the loss of innocence of their childhood, the loss of language, culture, and traditions, the loss of ceremonies to celebrate life, their spirituality, the loss of the right to an education, their language for many, the loss of their Mi'kmaq identity, the loss of self-esteem, the loss of family, parents, siblings, grandparents, and community, the loss of human rights, and the loss of life. I think the talk about the losses that we shared was our connection to our families and our siblings. Even though they were in the same building, we were not allowed to see our brothers on the girls' side, and they weren't allowed to see us on the girls' side, on the boys' side. And I think some of the things that we witnessed, so some children may have not suffered trauma directly, but they had to witness trauma happening to other children. And that leaves a lot lasting effect as well. Some people would say, I escaped that, but I witnessed things that stay with me forever. I think there's a lot to be said for sharing our stories, sharing when we're on our healing journey. A lot of us shared our experiences. We all suffered experiences that were felt by everybody. The way that we were regimented and institutionalized in the residential school, where we had no freedoms to do whatever we could do, what the freedoms that you have as young people. Our daily, I guess our daily schedule that we had started in the morning when you had to get up and go to church, get ready, go to church. And in the afternoon, we would go to church. In the evening, we would say the rosaries, we would go to church. So we had very strict religious indoctrination during the residential school. Many of our people are still impacted by their experiences. Sometimes I think it's very confusing for people who follow the church, yet hear about the injustices to children in the school, but also when the Pope came to apologize for genocide in Canada and the abuses that happened in the residential school. We waited a long time for that, for the church to take responsibility for their actions and for their role in the residential school. We waited a long time for the government of Canada to take responsibility for their role. And as a result, we have the calls to action. So the Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls to action. Working together to right the wrongs of history, to clear a path of healing and reconciliation for our children, grandchildren, and the future generations. The Truth and Reconciliation released its report in 2015, and the recommendations, 94 calls to action, which is why I'm here today, one of those actions on education, to educate the people about the residential school. Working together with our Indigenous peoples and our allies to create a better society that respects each other and our Mother Earth and all our relations. Holding Canada and the churches accountable to implement the Truth and Reconciliation calls to action. Out of 94 calls to action, only 13 have been completed to date. There's still a lot of work to do. On June 21st, 2023, a plan to implement UNDRIP, the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, was released by the government, with the Indigenous people wanting more consultation on these plans. There's laws being made, but are they being implemented? Healing and reconciliation, healing the intergenerational impacts. The survivors need gatherings to continue their healing for themselves and their families. Whenever we get together, there's still a lot to be shared on the trauma. There's much to be shared about their people's healing journeys and how they are getting to where they are today to live a good life. We call that Welgay, Weljagei, living the good life. Weljagei. Some say that they have put a lot of things behind them and they accept a lot of things that happen. They forgive a lot of the things that happened so that they could move on with their lives and to raise their families and their grandchildren and give them a chance at it, living a good life too. Teaching mandatory curriculum about the Indian residential school and the Indigenous history in our communities, in our schools, both on and off reserves. Working together to right the wrongs of history, to clear a path for our grandchildren and the future generations that are up and coming, the next leaders in our society. Reviving Mi'kmaq culture and language and history and our ceremonies to heal our nation. There is a need for ongoing health and wellness programs for survivors and descendants in all our communities. Indigenous people continue to strive for equality in many aspects of our lives today, for basic human rights, environmental rights, treaty rights in Canada. I've had many mentors and people, elders that have left us, but their legacy lives on in the work that we do to right those wrongs. to help our people to continue to heal. We have elders in our communities that stood up for all survivors, like Dorene Bernard. She filed the largest class action lawsuit against the government and the churches, to speak about the trauma that happened in residential schools and to find justice and compensation for all the students across Canada who attended residential schools. Yeah. We have elders in our community. Isabel Knockwood, who wrote the first book on Out of the Depths, that talked about the stories of the residential school. And it took a lot of bravery for them to come forward, to speak, these women, these elders, these grandmothers, the matriarchs, to come forward to speak our voice, help us to find our voice. Whenever we get together, we find a lot of happiness. We see our brothers and sisters. We're able to reconnect. A lot of times we really miss the people who don't come, that can't come, and those that have journeyed on to the spirit world. We honor them each time. In Shubenacadie, there's the National Historic Site with the 3 plaques, Mi'kmaq and Wolastoq language, in English and French. How many of here have been down to the National Historic Site? Yes, that was in 2021, when the plaques were placed there. On the plaque, it says the Shubenacadie Indian Residential School, 1929 to 1967. Many Mi'kmaq, Wolastoq, and other Indigenous children were forced to attend the only residential school in the Maritimes at Shubenacadie. Created by the Canadian government and run by the Catholic Church, it was part of a national colonial policy meant to assimilate students by prohibiting their cultures, their languages. In 2015, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission described this policy as cultural genocide. Many Shubenacadie survivors and descendants call it genocide. The abuses, malnutrition, harsh punishment, and child labor endured at this school have impacted generations. This place is witness to the children who died here, the resilience of survivors and descendants, and those who fight for restitution and justice. It was placed there by the National Historic Sites and Monuments Board of Canada. So what does reconciliation mean to us? Well, we talk about those calls to action on reconciliation, on commemoration. There's 4 actual calls to action that talk about commemoration. So it meant a lot to the survivors that these commemorations are completed. We have some of our communities, out of 13 communities in Nova Scotia, I would say 38 communities in the Maritimes Only 13 have actual monuments in their communities. We have to do something about that. We're working on that. Each community where students came from should have a monument or commemorative piece in their communities. That's part of um, our settlement agreement. That was part of our settlement agreement, that we would have these. The regional commemoration for Shubenacadie. That's a project that I've been working on for 6 years. We're in the implementation stage of a 4-stage process that took us around the Maritimes to consult with the survivors and ask them what they wanted. And then we started doing the research at the school for the missing children. And that's still in process, and the Shubenacadie Band has that project. It's still in the process for us to continue to search for those missing children here in our territory. There are 27 names on the memorial banner of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and National Center for Truth and Reconciliation. There is in their memorial registry from the residential school in Shubenacadie. There are many names. There are over 4,000 names on that banner of the children that died at the residential school. We still don't know. We don't know how many have been are still missing. So commemoration means very much to the survivors and our families. For those that have passed on, we still carry their stories. We still carry what their wishes are to be for honor for our survivors. The Shubenacadie IRS commemoration. No, if I put that on there. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. A place of sanctuary. This is what it means to us. We want a place that is a sanctuary for the heart, the mind, and the spirit. A place that allows a safe place to provide for reflection, meditation, and prayer. A place that allows for taking a few moments to sit and be held. A place that allows for vulnerability. A place that reminds us of our strengths and our resilience. And a place that fosters growth. This is the designer, Ursula Johnson, who's designing our commemoration piece. I say, what does healing from the past? How are we healing from the past and creating a better future? Survivors gathered together to talk and to heal and to share our experiences. Through those years, it took many years for us to find our voice, to be able to talk without the anger and the pain. Coming together each time, growing stronger, bringing more people. It took a while for us to be able to do that. And we were very fortunate that we had leadership in that. The residential school survivors filed a lawsuit against Canada. The Royal Commission on Indigenous Peoples in 1996, a report that went out that was just shelved by the government, was never implemented. The INAC minister apologizes to residential school survivors in 1998. What she really said was that shouldn't have happened. And that wasn't taking accountability or responsibility. So we didn't accept that apology. I didn't. The creation of the Aboriginal Healing Foundation in 1998. On June 11th, 2008, Canada apologized to the residential school survivors. And on January 18th, a week later, Canada amended the Human Rights Act, Canadian Human Rights Act, to apply human rights to natives living on reserves. So up until 2008, we didn't have human rights living on reserves. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission, established in 2008. The Mi'kmaq Nation strives to thrive, not just to survive. We have been here for over 13,000 years. We want to make sure that that's in your education when we talk about our nation. Mi'kmaq control of Mi'kmaq education and I think input into the curriculum of all education. Mi'kmaq control of child welfare, the assertion of our treaty rights. We are on unceded Mi'kma'ki. This is our territory. We have the right to protect our lands and our waters, our resources for future generations. Holding Canada accountable and the churches to implement all 94 calls to action. My reason for being here today to talk to you is that I care. I care about this generation, and I have so much hope that you will live a good life, free from oppression, racism, and harms from the past. We look to the youth to help to create a better place for all. While the elders have much to share, we wait for you to come and sit with us and ask us. 7 sacred teachings have helped me in my healing journey to walk this good road. We call it the red road, this good road, and live a good life. These are the foundations for living a good life. Say it again. Welgagei. You see, I don't have my language, but I am trying. I am still learning. Powerful words. You have to strive to have balance in all aspects of your life, your mental health, your physical health, your emotional health, and your spiritual health. Your development of your spirituality is very important. We need to have faith in our Creator, whatever you call your higher power, knowing we are never alone and we have the guidance of our ancestors and our Creator to help you in your times of need. I can only share that this is what works for me. When you strive to practice these teachings of love, respect, self-love, love for yourself, love for Creator. You love yourself, you respect yourself, you have courage, honesty, humility, wisdom, and truth. You will also know when you are straying away from these teachings, and you're more apt to change your behavior and reach out for help when you need it. The survivors want the best life for the youth. Our future depends on you too. We want you to have all that we didn't have as students of residential school. We want to share these sacred teachings and help, any help that we can give. We want you to have a good life, live good health, good help, long life, happiness, and understanding. Those are what we pray for. Oops. These are some resources that I put here for you to talk about where you can find more information. We have a website at Mi'kmaq Way to Burt Cultural Center. It's being updated. Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the report. Also, the Yellowhead Institute, the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation. Also on the survivors circle at the National Center. And I also work on a steering committee for the National Monument in Ottawa that's going to be placed on Parliament Hill. So these are some of the things we're still working on to honor the survivors of the residential school. Thank you very much for listening to me. Now I have to listen to your questions.
Thank you so much, Dorene. You certainly have found your voice, and we're just so honored to have you here with us today. You spoke of the leaders in front of us here, and at Hanseys Rural High, we have a whole school community full of amazing leadership, and they have prepared some questions, and I don't know, we might have some online as well. So I am going to ask that if you're one of the students that have prepared a question, if you could make your way to one of the two mics.
Gwe, Aknin Miss G, Natalie Glode, Medewalen, Blaliok, for coming here to speak to us, Doreen. Aknin Natalie Glode, Akin Dusul, Nora Bernard, the late Nora Bernard, who you spoke about, and I thank you so much for giving her that recognition. And I also want to thank you for 17 years ago for being the one that gave the first prayer for the first memorial walk for the late Nora Bernard, with whom was my mother, on December 26, 2007. One of the questions here is, what was the hardest thing you had to overcome as a residential school survivor?
Well, I think it was forgiving my parents for me being there. I think that was one of the hardest things. And I was 28 years old when I spoke to my mother and asked her, you know, why we were there, why we were sent there to the residential school. And having had children of my own, realizing, you know, what it must have been like for her to make that decision, thinking that she couldn't provide the kind of life that she wanted us to have, and they might be able to do a better job of raising us while they were going through some family violence and some issues, you know, that trying to protect her children. And it wasn't until I was that age, at 28, where I finally understood and, you know, forgave her but I carried a chip on my shoulder for quite a long time. And that's what I had to heal from, to finally, because the other issues, all the other abuses and all the other things that happened as a child, I think losing that connection with my parents was the biggest loss and the biggest thing I had to overcome.
Well, Alan, the second question I have, We've got an equity committee being set up here at Hanseys Rural High School and reconciliation that's coming up, the powwow. What do you think about that? And do you have any advice for the reconciliation powwow that's coming up?
Well, yeah, I think to involve the survivors from the community to be a part of your planning and give advice. There's many that would love to be a part of that and talk about what reconciliation really means to them. Yeah,
Awesome. Thank you,
Yeah.
Walalan.
thank you.
Gwe,
Great.
Neen Delawisi Keynes Davidson, Delawi Shubenacadie. Hi, my name is Keynes Davidson. I'm also from Shubi. And the questions I have for you today is, why is it important to talk about residential schools and day schools while remembering both the students who made it home and who didn't?
Well, it's very important that this education is taught and that we want understanding. You know, we give our truths, and I think that's what and we keep doing that. Not everybody will walk away with the understanding that they need, but it's a good start for them to look at their own beliefs and their own I think what the things that they need to know to have tolerance, to have understanding for other people. And we haven't had that. I mean, we still get deniers that say that the things that we talk about never happen. We still get people to say there's no missing children, and they don't acknowledge those ones that never came home. Thousands of children didn't come home. And that's why we say genocide happened in Canada. It's so important for us to remember them. We remember those children, we speak to them, we pray for them whenever we're together. And we ask that they be included in any commemoration that we have. The survivors want them included in any kind of a commemoration nationally. You know, we're still waiting for a monument in Halifax. You know, every capital city in Canada should have a monument, and that's in the 94 calls to action. You know, that's one that each city could have implemented by now. So we're still waiting for, for that to happen. And we have to make sure there's people behind us to say that that's how we work together to answer those calls to action and to never forget, because we don't want this ever to happen again.
Thank you for sharing that with us. I have a second question. We're still dealing with the impacts of residential schools through intergenerational trauma. So what can our school do to support Indigenous students at Hanseys Rural High who have connections to Indian residential schools?
Well, I'm hoping that I'm pretty sure there's support for any student really that has any kind of trauma or anything that they need to work through. My wish and my prayer is for all students, whether they be Indigenous or non-Indigenous, they have trauma, experience losses in their lives, and they have hurt and things that they carry. You don't have to carry that alone. You shouldn't have to carry that alone. And it took me a long time to heal. I was in my late 30s when I actually started following those 7 sacred teachings that I talked about and actually implementing them in my life and working with people to help. And what I say is that, when you love yourself, you respect yourself, you have courage to speak, to talk to someone, and to carry those 7 sacred teachings in your life every day. They'll help you to heal. They'll help you to that I think the biggest, most profound teaching was learning to embrace my creator. Lots of times we blame things that happen to us on creator. We say that, you know, where were you when I needed you the most? Lots of times that's what carried us through. And the ancestors, of course, I rely on their guidance every day. When we say that we want the young people to be able to reach out and get the help that they need and not to carry those things into your adulthood, because it robs you of your good health, long life, happiness, and understanding. It robs you of living that good life. Well, Jaggi,
Well, all in.
thank you.
Hello.
Oh.
My name's Sophia, and I have 2 questions for you today. The first one is, how has your experience with residential schools changed your relationships with family, friends, and your community?
Say it again, please.
How has your experience with residential schools changed your relationships with family, friends, and your community?
Well, it sure changed my outlook on life when I got out of there. I was going on 11 years old, and I was mad at the world. And it changed a lot about my my lack of trust in people, you know, my lack of empathy for others, all these things, just your relationships changed. That understanding, I think, knowing where all that came from, and that healing journey I've been on, you know, I think it's taken some time, but we heal those relationships that, you know, those ones that well, I guess the ones that meant the most to us, you know, the ones that the people we loved, and we accept, you know, those challenges that we had, you know, growing up as a family and in my community. I mean, we weren't even accepted by our own people when we come out of the residential school. Our own people would say that, stay away from those kids, you know, they went to the residential school. Like we were in a reform school. You can't go to a reform school at 4 years old, but people really thought that we were damaged. They knew we were damaged. And that was just, I think those things that we had to overcome is to be who we are, you know, and ask for that. So we had people in our own family who went to the residential school before us that couldn't even speak about what happened to them. My father was one of them. He was there from 1929 to 1940 for 11 years. And I never once heard him speak about what happened to him, but he showed us what happened. So I think that I love my father dearly, and he died at a young, the age I am now. I think I'm so fortunate that I changed my life and changed my life for the better and healed those relationships so that I wouldn't have to carry those things. A lot of people don't want to take this to our grave. We want something good to come from this. If this is it, you know, what we do today.
Thank
Thank you.
you for sharing that.
Mm.
My second question is, what does Orange Shirt Day mean to you, and how can we show support for it?
Orange T-shirt day. This is the Truth Reconciliation Day. And Orange T-shirt day was created by my friend who was also on the Survivor Circle with me at the NCTR, Phyllis Webstad. And she didn't want people to forget, you know, the survivors. She didn't want people to forget those that have passed on, and especially those children that never came home. When we have Truth and Reconciliation Day on Orange T-shirt Day on September 30th, it's spent for honoring those ones that never came home, those ones that we are still looking for. The ones that are still here are the ones that are still searching for those children. And of course, all our ancestors that have passed on, all our survivors who have passed on, that left behind the legacy of the residential school for justice, for healing, and to educate the world about genocide in Canada. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know that we have lots more questions to ask because we do have such amazing students, but we are going to have to stop the Q&A just due to the time limit with the presentation. But I have shared all of those questions and we'll continue to get some answers and share your knowledge with our students. She will come back anytime.
Speak to
So-
any class.
So just a second, Dorene, we are deeply honored and grateful for the strength and wisdom you have shared with us today. Your reflections on your journey as a residential school survivor have touched us profoundly. We recognize the pain and resilience that come with sharing these difficult stories, and we certainly thank you for trusting us with them. Your teachings remind us of the importance of truth as we walk the path toward reconciliation. As we continue this journey, your words will guide us in our efforts to build a future grounded in respect, healing, and understanding. We thank you for being with us, for your courage, and for helping us to see the responsibility that we all share, honoring the past, and certainly working towards a better future. On behalf of Hants East Rural High, and also the National Center of Truth and Reconciliation, we would like to present to you this red fabric and tobacco as a small token of our immense gratitude for the wisdom, teachings, and stories you have so generously shared with us. In our hearts, we understand the sacredness of these gifts, and we offer them with deep respect and humility. Your guidance has enriched our school community and has helped us strengthen our connection to the land, our histories, and one another. Will you?
Thank you.
And just one further thing before we exit the gym or the AV room. This Friday, or actually Thursday because of the rain, we do have many of our students that are going to be joining students from LSK, from Shubenacadie District Elementary, from Riverside, and also some MK schools to walk from Shubenacadie District over to the former site of the Shubenacadie Residential School. And we're going to be representing Hants East, our school community, and those students that are going to be placing orange flags in a big, gigantic orange heart at the former site. And it is so impactful. I certainly hope that those that are unable to be there that day with us, that you take a moment to go over and to see and to reflect, and also to go certainly on September 30th to the wonderful activities and events happening over there at the former site. It's just an honor to be a part of it. So I encourage you all to do that. Teachers, you now can start to make your, oh, did you want to say?
I just want to say that the Nationals, sorry, in Ottawa, they will be having the Truth and Reconciliation events on the Hill. Yeah, that's where I will be there to represent our survivors from the the Atlantic region. And there's many opportunities to look at the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation website for education events that are all live streamed and they're all going to be downloaded so you can see what's happening across Canada, as well as this session. Thank you very much.
So students, you can make your way back with your teachers to your classes and the bell will go in about 5 minutes.